Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday to you. It's Friday, October 30th. Some of you are preparing to have a real fun weekend, possibly if you participate in the Halloween and costume festivities. It's Dr. Stephanie Ardrey, known as Dr. Money, coming to you live from beautiful Negril, Jamaica. Dr. Thyonne, known as Story Genius, and I have been bringing you Money and Mindset series this week, and we will continue to have this series during the week, daily during the week, 8 a.m. Pacific time. I guess it's going to be, we've been on Pacific Daylight Time, so we'll be changing to Pacific Standard Time as you prepare this weekend as well to change the clocks. Thankfully, I don't have to immediately experience those impacts because my body clock is always challenged when we adjust the clocks. But what we decided that we were going to do for today was we were going to open up and allow questions from the listeners, and we were going to look and receive some questions and begin to answer those questions. And we received some. So what I want to do is two things. I'll recap some of what we discussed this week, and then I'll begin to answer some of the questions that we received just to clarify some of those points. And then if you have additional questions that you'd like to raise, feel free to add them in the chat box. What will help me is if when you connect to the stream, you click on the request to allow StreamYard to reveal your name. And then that way I will know who you are and be able to address you as well. So again, for those that are tuning in for the first time, I'm Dr. Stephanie Ardrey, known as Dr. Money. We've been talking about money and mindset. This week, we discussed really the foundation of what allowed this segment to be born. And that was following just months of being on lockdown, as we have been in the US regarding the COVID global pandemic. Those walls begin to shrink in on you sometimes. You know, you're locked in a place, you feel restricted, and your spirit just needs something. And I was feeling what now I've learned has really a medical term, just a severe amount of physical exhaustion. And so often when you are leading organizations, you're leading your family, you're leading, you're out playing a game, like I say, playing a game full on, your A game. Sometimes you discover that you're running on empty. So your tank needs to be refilled. And what I learned recently is if you deny yourself those opportunities to refill your tank, they manifest in things like illnesses and all kinds of things. And so thankfully, although I can honestly say I still delayed probably longer than I should have, I began to realize that I was running on empty. In fact, I was below empty. And right around that time, I started making plans to just try to create a state change, to actually force a state change by changing my environment. And so it was, could I investigate and find another place? I'm not on vacation. I have to work. People find that difficult. How could you be on an island? And, even some of the guests here at the hotel have come up to me like, what are you doing? Every time we see you, you're working, you're on a computer, you're doing something. So as much as I'd like to say that it's just been sort of a vacation, honestly, it really hasn't. It has been the opportunity to work in a different environment. And in doing so, trying to schedule within that work a little opportunity to refuel my tank. And what that has manifested into has been morning walks. Every morning I get up early and I go for a walk before I begin my day. I didn't know about grounding and how important grounding was. So I made sure that once I learned about that, that I took off my shoes and let the sand and the water, touch my physical presence and to really just take it in. This morning, I added a session of tapping after my walk on the beach because I could still feel the stress in my body. But how this trip manifested was I was feeling this need for relief, rejuvenation, refueling. And Dr. Thyonne, story genius, had made arrangements to come to Jamaica for a month. And when she mentioned that to me, I was like, can I go? Is there any way that I can go? Can I figure out a way to budget to make this trip happen? And it's because, I'm in school and, you got to maintain what's happening in your life. But also, just like many of you, my business, I was in the process of a big pivot. I was operating a commercial brokerage where typically what that means is I represent tenants. So we're out looking at properties. And once we were on lockdown, I found it challenging to be able to continue that level of business. Business basically ended 100% in that capacity. Now, thankfully, at Blue Diamond Capital, we also handle commercial finance, which is very stressful at times because you're working with clients that may not have all of their things in order. And at a time where everyone is under another layer of stress, right? So you're trying to assist them. And so immediately I was able to pivot more to the commercial finance needs, assist clients with their EIDL loans, their PPP loans, which brought me great joy. But at the same time, it increased my workload and required that I add another layer of hours, coupled with being in law school that's very rigorous. And I realized that I had set myself up on a schedule that probably pushed me closer to a breaking point than really I understood. I'm working every day, Monday through Friday, dealing with the clients. I try to finish my work day no later than 6, grab a quick bite to eat, and then at 6:30 is when I'm scheduled to start my homework. And I work Monday through Friday, 6:30 to midnight, sometimes 1 in the morning or more. And then on the weekend, all day Saturday and all day Sunday to complete the assignments. And there's just times that you're so exhausted that even though you are attempting to commit that time, your brain is just not settled because you've run out of energy, you've run out of fuel in your tank. So part of coming to Jamaica was an opportunity to reconnect and refuel. I didn't expect that also keeping that same busy schedule that I could almost be here on an island and somehow or another bring that same stress with me without completely diffusing it. So I had that news flash this past week that it made no sense to work so hard to heal and then to right as it becomes closer to the time to return home, to find that all the stress that I was working so hard to release, I'm still carrying. So I really have taken an aggressive stance to address that. But when we talked about just kind of the money and the mindset, it was more than, I want to go to Jamaica. It really, for me, became, I need to go to Jamaica, almost like I need to save my life. Right? I need to bring back some energy into my life. And so one of the questions that was raised, Dr. Thyonne asked, when I speak of manifestation, am I referring to manifestation in the same context as many of you have heard? If you followed the series, The Secret, if you read the book or if you saw the videos and you understood about their conversations about manifestations. And yes, it's a very, it's definitely, we're speaking from the same pool of knowledge in this idea of being able to understand what it is you want. What I mean in particular is sometimes in life, in business, you are running so fast in the race, attempting to address the day-to-day responsibilities that you fail to take a pause and stop and catch your breath and recover. And so there's something said often about the need to, resharpen the pencil. If you continue to write on a pencil without sharpening it again, it's going to become dull. And it's going to be more difficult to utilize that pencil. So what you want to do is pause. I say in business oftentimes and in life, let me pause, take the temperature, and evaluate. Am I even running still in the right direction? Or am I just running because I've conditioned myself to run? And I haven't realized that I'm running in the wrong direction. And so it's at that point for me that I will stop and take a look at my visual boards. So I create visual boards. And what I'll do is I will look at the last visual board that I created where I put the visualizations that I wanted to manifest. And then I'll assess, are those things on that board still the things that I need, that I so desperately need at that particular point? Or is it time to update that board with some new focus, some new visions that are necessary for me to go forward? And so it really is about first taking an inventory and understanding what it is next for you. And to me, that really comes from a place of, I've always wanted to be healthy. I had the tragic experience of watching my mother at 48 years young take a nap. I wasn't there. I didn't watch this happen, but living through my mother at 48 years of age, taking a nap and dying in her sleep. And that was really when life hit a wall for me. Whew. And many years later, I still struggle sometimes to even know how I found the way to pick up the pieces and push forward. It wasn't just because she was my mom. Everybody has their parents. But it was because I felt that I had a big assignment in life. And I was pushing so hard to retire my mother early, which was what informed my business decisions, which was why I made significant sacrifices, as a young person when my peers were out partying, having a great time. I spent many weekends home in my bed with a stack of books, reading, studying, attempting to develop my knowledge so that I could put in those 10,000 hours, as they say, to make myself an expert in my respective field. I didn't date very much because I was so driven with a very specific mission. My mission was to build a business that would not only sustain myself, would allow me to retire my mother early, as well as to provide a livelihood for the employees that chose to follow my vision. And so as a young person, I took on a lot of, if you would say, adult responsibilities. But truthfully, that started long before I was an adult. I remember my mother we moved away from my grandmother. My mother bought our first home. I was 9 years old at the time. She had just gone through a big lawsuit, an employment discrimination lawsuit with the organization. So she was out of work and she just bought this home. She decided to put herself through school. And I didn't want to change schools. So although we had moved to East Oakland, I was still in elementary school in Emeryville, which was, a long trek in the opposite direction because she was at school at Cal State Hayward. So my mother would literally get up every morning, drive me to Emeryville, backtrack past our home to go to Hayward to go to school. And eventually the stress of all that took its toll on my mom, and she found herself deathly ill in the hospital where she was hospitalized for over a month. That scared me to no great end. And so when my mother was released, she wanted to come home and heal. But what that meant was that a 9-year-old, I think I was probably 11 by the time this happened. At 11 years old, I took the responsibility of driving the car to the grocery store without getting caught, buying groceries. So people say, well, how are you so disciplined? Why do you know so much about counting money? Because I had to learn how to grocery shop within a budget at 11. When I finally started meeting my peers in the neighborhood, they were amazed that I was their age and younger because they had seen me driving this car. They thought I was much older to be taken on that level of responsibility, but it was essential. I needed to help my mother, and I was going to do whatever it took to help my mother. And so it allowed me to take on adult responsibilities, possibly ahead of the time. And I've continued to sort of take on these responsibilities, possibly ahead of the time. It's something that's been sometimes a point of contention with others because you can be misunderstood when you're doing those things. But thankfully, my mother gave me the gift of being able to visualize. And with that visualization, she empowered me with the understanding that you can visualize and you can declare where it is you see yourself headed. And you can declare those things irrespective of what's happening real time in your life. So because of that, when I think about manifestation, I really am talking about complete manifestation, meaning that there's something that's communicating with you. It's that inner knowing, it's that gut, it's that spirit that is attempting to guide you. But if you get caught up in the noise of the universe or of the people around you, sometimes you can't hear that guidance. And oftentimes you make your journey far more complex or difficult than it needs to be because of your inability to connect with that voice and to hear what you're supposed to do. So this manifestation of this trip was really, I would say, evidence of me realizing that I was so disconnected from my source, but I was getting a warning sign. And I knew that I didn't want to ignore those gut messages any longer because I frankly didn't think that I could. I was just completely exhausted. So I had to start to reframe the picture. I had to start to allow my mind to imagine, where could I go? And I remember it was about 15 years ago. I wasn't quite at this place of exhaustion, but it was pretty exhausted as well. My mother had passed. My father had passed. My father died at 57. So it was amazing. I had young parents, yet they were the first to pass on. I had my son. I had started a new career, reinvented myself, and it just felt like I had been pushing a boulder up a mountain nonstop, just constantly. Okay, this happens. Okay, let me pivot here. And there was a group trip to Jamaica, and I was able to go with this group. And I didn't know what to expect. I had never come to Jamaica before. But what I found was that I healed. And I was smart enough at that point to know that since I wasn't sure what to expect in Jamaica, I took a week in Miami and then came to Jamaica. And then on my way back, was able to go back to Miami, which is one of my happy places. And that process allowed me to heal. Now, I never expected that I'd take another 15 years before I gave myself that type of relief to detox from the stresses of life and to be able to recalibrate my body. But that's clearly what came up. And that was why it was so essential to manifest this opportunity to work remotely. And I have to tell you that it has produced fruits. And although I'm not 100% released, and I think it's because it's not possible for me to ignore the realities of what's happening at home. I carry the same anxieties that everyone else does. I'm concerned as a Black woman in America about my safety and well-being. I suffer the same injustices that other Black Americans have as it relates to housing, income, work. And I'm the mother of a 23-year-old Black son. And so I absolutely carry the concerns and the anxiety around his well-being. And at the same time, I know that faith and fear do not coexist. So the moment that I allow fear to dominate my thoughts, that disconnects me from my faith. So I really had to get away from the toxic messages and the noise so that I could reconnect to the faith and stand on the faith, because that's what will allow us to pull through. And so I urge you, when you think about where you are at this time, I want you to challenge yourself to envision what you would like to see, what you would like to experience. And I want you to slowly spend more time focusing on that than the immediate realities that you might be experiencing or facing in your life. Focus on where you want to be. Spend more time focusing on where you want to be. Prepare for next. Listen, I don't know the outcome of the elections, but I know tensions are high. So what I'm working to do, and what I hope you will do, is to start to consider what happens either way. What will your posture be? How will you find a way forward, irrespective of the outcomes? Don't be so vested in the outcome that if your desires fail, if our wishes are not met based on this particular election cycle, do not become discouraged. Prepare yourself. Yes, I want to have faith, and I want to believe that things are going to work out exactly as they should. But sometimes we don't understand the process to get to that why we should. And so that's where that ability to take control of your thoughts by finding some things that identify and resonate with your vision. If you had everything that you wanted in your life, what would your life be like? What would your home life be? What would your wellness state be? What would your economic state be? What would your mental state be? What would your family life be? What would the relationships with the people who matter to you be? Once you put all those things into context, then it gives you an opportunity to focus on manifesting those outcomes and leaving yourself open to those possibilities, because it's possible and those things are there. So hopefully that's given you a background and an understanding about the manifestation. And so in that manifestation, the second question really had to do with, why do you think and pray over things and sometimes they don't happen? Well, that's because sometimes we put, as humans, our own timeline on when those manifestations should happen. And I must admit, there are times that it's easy to give up. Maybe my prayers are never going to be answered. But I caution you on that. When you're tired, find a way to rest, reflect, and rejuvenate. Because sometimes there's a saying that it's darkest before the dawn. Sometimes you feel that it's dark, and instead of getting lighter, it's getting darker. Well, it's true. It can be darkest before the dawn. But don't give up, because sometimes you're in that final stretch of the race. And if you can just find that last bit of energy in order to propel yourself forward, then you are able to push on to that next level of possibility. So I'm going to pause for a second and allow Story Genius to join in before we conclude our session.
Good morning.
Good
Oh
morning.
my God. I missed this morning's session.
No worries. I was worried about you. I'm glad to see you. Thankfully, you didn't miss. You gave me the assignment of the questions. And so I was able to begin answering those questions. And I so appreciate that and your spirit of getting that started. I just wanted to make sure you were okay.
I am okay. I taught a class yesterday and it was long and I didn't even realize how tired I was and probably jet lagged because I have not stopped since I came back to the States. But this morning, I guess my body was like, you're going to stop. And I mean, I slept through the alarm, through my workout, through everything. And I just got up and I was just like, oh my God, how did it get so late? And you know, I'm an early riser.
Exactly. Well, it was such a beautiful morning. I still have been struggling with sleep, so I haven't really slept all week. Thankfully, Dr. Oliver suggested something, so I'm going to try it. I don't have everything that he wants, but it looks like I'm dealing with a bit of adrenal stress, which is and then I guess probably with, middle-aged lady hormones and all of those things, that the combination of just, you've watched as I was here, I couldn't sleep at night. So I'd be hours in my room trying to do my homework. And then, it finally hit a breaking point with that. I just became so exhausted as well, but still unable to sleep. So last night trying to do homework, I said, okay, I'm just no longer, I'm not able to reduce anything. So let me pick. Let me see if I go to sleep a little bit earlier, what'll happen. So I woke up an hour earlier and was able to start my walk earlier. And by the time I made it back to the property, my spirit said, just sit in the water and to try to go through a tapping session to see if I could release some of the stress in my body. You're not going to believe this. So I was listening to Joel Osteen, and in the corner of my eye after a while, this lady is in the water swimming. Finally, she calls out to me, help me. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm in clothes and I walk into the water to go and see how I can help her. And then she kind of got her bearings and went on. She is the family that owned the property where where I'm staying.
Wow.
And she's 91 years old. And she shared that she had literally just fallen on her butt because she said they don't let her get out much. And so she was begging to get out to the water so that she could try. But she says, I have old lady issues. So she just, grabbed me. She says, I saw you were meditating, but I needed you because I fell on my butt and I wanted you to kind of push me out a little bit further so I could get in there so that I could float. I could get my float on in the water. And then she started speaking words, literally speaking to my spirit what I had been praying and meditating about. And I couldn't wait to tell you that we were talking about manifestation. We were talking about how we manifested this trip. And we were talking about just the importance to listen to that gut. As you said, the head, the heart, and the hunger. And so, in a sense, just having even another level of validation. So I'll let you jump in. I've had a lot of dialogue this morning. I was just about at the point of answering question number 2, and really saying that prayer without works is sometimes what impacts your ability to manifest an outcome. And then you had a question regarding, when I say it's not about money, what are we talking about? So I'll toss that one to you, story genius, and let you take the mic.
Well, you know what? I think it'll be better if we ended on that second question and we can come back to the third question maybe a little later, because I think what you just talked about in terms of mindset and money is probably the most important part of the lesson that everybody should get today. And that is faith without works is dead. A lot of times, and that was the question I think about when you pray on something or you think on it or you're trying to manifest something, why does nothing happen? Or why does it seem like it's not working? And that's sort of what you talked about with, you're like, okay, I really need to sleep, and I'm thinking of sleep, and I'm doing this, and but sometimes, even when you say faith without works is not dead, I want to be really clear on that, because work is an action word. It is a word where you're actually moving forward, doing something. But that doesn't mean you have to do the thing to make you manifest what it is that you need. Tapping, the tapping exercise that you're talking about is a release exercise. And tapping is releasing some of those things that are going on within you, that energy, that anxious energy, those things that say, I need to do this and I need to do that and I need to do this so that I can manifest something. That's not what the faith without works means. The works means you continue to move forward in the work of your life, in your purpose-driven work, in what you're doing now. If you're not sure what that purpose is, it is about continuing to live your life fully. It's not about you grabbing and trying to make something happen. The thing will come that needs to come. The opportunities will come that need to come. You can't make them come. And so sometimes when you are praying for something or trying to manifest something so hard, and you continue to ask for it every time, once you ask for it, you've asked for it. You can continue to add it in, but don't be anxious for it. Because sometimes your answer is there. There are 3 answers. If you believe in God, you can get 3 answers. You can get yes, and then you move on. You can get no, this isn't for now. And you can get not now. So it doesn't mean your prayers are not answered. It means there may be something else for you before that one thing comes. If I wanted to manifest a elephant to just appear, if we just manifested things immediately and I was just like thinking of an elephant, boom, I'd have a big elephant sitting in my room with a bunch of dung right there too. That's not how you manifest things. That's not how you want to manifest things. It takes time, it takes energy, and it takes you being relaxed in it and faith that whatever it is that you are trying to do will happen for you. You just have to believe in it. It'll happen in the time that it's supposed to happen, not in your time, but in God's time. So I think that's the message to end with today. And we'll get to those other questions next week. We have a whole week full of activity for next week, and I'll be all rested by then because I plan on getting some rest this week because I know that's what my body needs. But thank you so much for letting me in right at the end of the show. It's 8:34, so we're going to let people honor their time. But faith without works is dead. Manifestation works, and that manifestation will bring you exactly what you need. It may not be, oh my gosh, I'm manifesting, I want to see $1 million right now, but you may have every part of the wealth of $1 million and live the type of life of that millionaire, of that billionaire, and never even understand that you have exactly what you asked for, what you really asked for, what that gut asked for. That's the type of life you want to live. I don't have to live a life where everyone is saying, well, do you have $1 billion? Maybe I don't have $1 billion in the bank, but I tell you what, I've been to some castles, I've been in some big houses. I've lived the kind of life a billionaire may live. And I haven't had the stress that billionaires might have. I think I have what I wanted, what I really desired in my heart and in my gut.
So wonderful. So I thank you, my sister.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And so everyone who has been tuning in to Money and Mindset will be back on Monday. And next week, we're going to have a couple of special guests that we will surprise you with. So we're working on that as well. And we promise that we will continue to bring you Money and Mindset to help you shift your perspective and manifest what it is you seek and desire in your life so that you can live a balanced, holistic, healthy, and fruitful life. Dr. Money and Story Genius,
Dr. Story, see you later.
All right. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Good weekend, everyone.